inside the house?
I don't know.
But you didn't see anyone.
I just heard her screaming. I threw him to the ground. I've been calling for her through his windows. Everybody's answering. Nothing.
The Los Angeles County coroner said her injuries were consistent with someone who had been assaulted. And she also said this.
Is petechia consistent with strangulation?
It is.
Is the injuries that we've observed on the decedent's neck also consistent with strangulation?
They are.
And jurors also heard testimony about a syringe found on Amie Harwick's balcony. An FBI forensic examiner testified that the liquid inside that syringe was 99% nicotine. Prosecutors contend that Gareth Pursehouse was going to inject Amie Harwick with that nicotine and kill her. In Los Angeles, Kelly Craft, back to you.
Our thanks to Kelly Craft for her reporting this morning. And we're going to see more of this trial today. But before we do, let's unpack some of this case together right now with some of the best guests out there in true crime. I've got on the show with me this morning in Washington, D.C., law enforcement expert Sonny Slaughter, and in Jacksonville, Alabama, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, Joseph Scott Morgan. I was just telling my friends on Facebook what a lineup we've got on the show today, and I'm so glad to have you both kicking it off. Professor Joe, let me start with you. Dr. Amie Harwick, the death, stunning, many in the Hollywood community where she lived. You were podcasting about it on your podcast Body Bags way back when. And I listened back to your episode recently as part of, my research and getting up to speed on the case. Professor, talk to us, if you would please, about these injuries and how a death investigator like yourself is going to look at the coroner's findings, the evidence left behind at the scene, and be able to tell what exactly happened to this woman, please.
Yeah, this is one of these cases where the dead are actually conjured up in court, and they tell the tale, don't they? And we can learn a lot from the body. When you look at Amie's poor broken body on the table before you as the medical examiner, one of the things that really stands out are these injuries that they're talking about to her neck. But not just that, there was evidence of struggle that had ensued prior to this. And these are multi-layered injuries, Julie, and just so you understand, she was probably strangled to the point where she had passed out. There was probably some anoxia going on where she didn't have a lot of oxygen going to her brain. And then in the final moments, she was thrown over the balcony. And that may have been a saving grace relative to the evidence, because now this hemorrhage in her neck that is brought about by this event of strangulation, manual strangulation, is even more striking at autopsy, because you have hemorrhage into these areas, and this contused area around the neck becomes more profound. And you couple that with the breakage that's going on inside of the environment, the broken glass, and certainly this nicotine syringe that is just, out of all the cases I've ever covered, I've never covered anything involving a nicotine poisoning like this.
Thank you for saying that, Professor Joe, because that jumped out to me. I'm thinking, what? That's what the attempt was, to try to kill her with that? Sonny Slaughter, in your many years of law enforcement service, have you ever seen anything like that?
There was one case where someone tried that, but I don't think they were successful either. And, just listening to the doctor speak, I'm just at awe in what he is saying. And the strangulation is very, very unique and such a personal way for someone to murder a person that they claim to have loved. It is very violent. It is very up close, and you are watching the individual as you are doing it. So the unique circumstances that this gentleman can say, and I guess I'll call him a gentleman, can say that he was only there to speak to her, and yet there was a syringe found, and then the strangulation. if he was not invited, he should have never been there. He knew that she was not going to let him in. This is not only a crime of passion, but this is a severe crime of violence, where domestic violence has overtaken the case, overtaken the person for years of anger and rage. That's what I see here.
Absolutely, Sunny Slaughter. I'm so glad you said that. Yes, this case reeks of domestic violence. To me, this is a batterer. Everything about this guy says abuser, abuser. She was terrified of him. She got out restraining orders against him. She was telling friends, family members, she was terrified of him. And he was persistent. And typically, you know, when batterers lose control, we know that's when they're the most dangerous. Professor Joe, you pointed out on your podcast, and this is worth another mention, to give context to this, this is the day after Valentine's Day. This brutal attack, February 15th. Yep. So, you know, this is in the wee hours, you know, of the night, right? So, you know, she's out with other people, not ex-boyfriend. Let's play a clip where her boyfriend, or excuse me, her roommate in the house, I should say housemate, Michael Herman, is telling the jury about how he was woken up by her, you know, terror-filled screams.
Later that night, yeah, I heard what I assumed was Amie screaming.
Tell the jury, what exactly is it that you heard?
It sounded like Amie's voice screaming, like blood-curdling screams.
Could you tell what she was screaming?
It was just loud. It screams. I thought she saw a mouse, literally. Like, as crazy as that sounds, that's like the only time I've heard a girl scream like that.
Professor Joe, when we take into account all of this evidence, you know, what we heard prior to the fall, the way she fell, is it clear to you that this woman was fighting for her life up until she was dropped from that balcony?
Yeah, and Pursehouse bears evidence of that. You know, there are all kinds of scratches on this guy, and this goes back also, Julie, to this point about the dead bearing witness on their own behalf. Those lovely nails that you see there in that video clip, they contain his DNA. She scratched this guy. And so that's going to, and that's really hard to overcome, isn't it? You know, when you begin to think about the astronomical numbers that they have to defeat, that is the defense in a case like this, because it's bearing witness to his presence in a very intimate circumstance like this. Sonny had pointed out the intimacy of this event, and you know, when you begin to think about strangulation, this is something that's up close and personal. It's very violent, and the idea that he just couldn't follow through with what he was attempting. Yeah, I think that he thought that he was going to enter in stealth and, you know, kind of sequester himself in that area until she arrived at home and then attack and drive the syringe into her. And of course, that all fell apart.
Isn't that the truth? You're right, Professor Joe. Sunny Slaughter, tapping into your experience with training on domestic violence cases, you train officers how to handle them. We know they're some of the most dangerous calls an officer can go on. How about for victims like Amie Harwick, where it appears very clear that this woman was trying to get away from him, trying to lead a healthy life, trying to move on, and this guy was just relentless? What more, if anything, and I am not victim blaming, I'm sure you both don't think that I am, and our viewers who know me know I'm an advocate for domestic violence prevention. And so I'm just asking this question because I think it's an important one for anybody watching who's in a scary relationship to think, what more could I do? It seems like this doctor did a lot. Sonny, what else is there, please, in terms of prevention and safety precautions for victims?
You know, one of the things, as somebody who has shown up at too many hospitals with victims of violence and victims of domestic violence, one of the things that I've always said is that the first red flag should be the last red flag that you have in a relationship with someone, particularly where you feel fear from them. Dr. Harwick kind of did everything that one person could do. She told people, she got restraining orders, she tried to be safe, she moved on with her life. But when someone is so determined, that is the problem. I think you just try to take all the necessary precautions, what she did. And you're right, you're not victim blaming. This needs to be a conversation that we have to gain a level of understanding of what people actually do, and then that they can still wind up being victims. We must talk about this more and more out loud about how to keep people safe, and we need to figure out the complex nuances in our criminal justice system that doesn't allow for this to happen.
I am all about that, as you know, my friend. Thank you for that. And we're going to continue talking about it on this show with all of these cases, shining a light on it, because it is a tough subject to breach. Sonny Slaughter, you are able to stay with us this hour, and we thank you for that. Professor Joseph Scott Morgan, we have to let you go, but thank you for giving us your expertise this morning. And my friends, do yourselves a favor, listen to the Body Bags podcast. You will learn so much. It's incredible. This is not the only case he's covering. He's covering all of them. And Professor, we'll bring you back here again soon. Thanks so much. Everybody will see you at CrimeCon too. Check him out at CrimeCon. He will be there. All right, so we're going to hit that break. And when we come back, my friends, we're going to get you up to speed on the latest. Get ready. There is more to the Murdaugh murder saga, according to his defense team. They're holding a presser this afternoon. We'll tell you about what we're expecting, and we're going to break down the various Shiver family 911 calls.